Annex 2. Sanctions-related commitments. The sequence of implementation of the commitments detailed in this annex is specified in Annex 5, Implementation Plan, to this Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPO. A. European Union. 1. The EU and EU member states commit to terminate all provisions of Council Regulation, EU, No. 267/2012, as subsequently amended, implementing all nuclear-related sanctions or restrictive measures as specified in Sections 1.11.10 below, to terminate all provisions of Council Decision 2010/413/CFSP, as subsequently amended, as specified in Sections 1.11.10 below, and to terminate or amend national implementing legislation as required, in accordance with Annex 5. 1.1 Financial, banking, and insurance measures. 1.1.1 Prohibition and authorization regimes on financial transfers to and from Iran, Article 10 of Council Decision 2010/413/CFSP, Articles 30, 30A, 30B, and 31 of Council Regulation, EU, No. 267/2012. 1.1.2 Sanctions on banking activities, Article 11 of Council Decision 2010/413/CFSP, Article 33 of Council Regulation, EU, No. 267/2012. 1.1.3 Sanctions on insurance, Article 12 of Council Decision 2010/413/CFSP, Article 35 of Council Regulation, EU, No. 267/2012. 1.1.4 Sanctions on financial messaging services, Article 20, 12, of Council Decision 2010/413/CFSP, Article 23, 4, of Council Regulation, EU, No. 267/2012. 1.1.5 Sanctions on financial support for trade with Iran, Article 8 of Council Decision 2010/413/CFSP. 1.1.6 Sanctions on grants, financial assistance, and concessional loans, Article 9 of Council Decision 2010/413/CFSP. 1.1.7 Sanctions on Government of Iran public guaranteed bonds, Article 13 of Council Decision 2010/413/CFSP, Article 34 of Council Regulation, EU, No. 267/2012, and 1.1.8 Sanctions on associated services for each of the categories above, see the references above. 1.2 Oil, gas, and petrochemical sectors. 1.2.1 Sanctions on the import of oil and gas from Iran, Articles 3A, 3C, and 3E of Council Decision 2010/413/CFSP, Articles 11, 12, and 14A, and Annexes 4 and 4A of Council Regulation, EU, No. 267/2012. 1.2.2 Sanctions on the import of Iranian petrochemical products, Articles 3B and 3D of Council Decision 2010/413/CFSP, Articles 13 and 14, and Annex 5 of Council Regulation, EU, No. 267/2012. 1.2.3 Sanctions on the export of key equipment for the oil, gas, and petrochemical sectors, Articles 4, 4A, and 4B of Council Decision 2010/413/CFSP, Articles 8, 9, and 10, and Annexes 6 and 6A of Council Regulation, EU, No. 267/2012. 1.2.4 Sanctions on investment in the oil, gas, and petrochemical sectors, Articles 6, 6A, and 7 of Council Decision 2010/413/CFSP, Articles 17, 1, 17, 2, B, and C, 17, 3, 17, 4, 17, 5, 20, and 21 of Council Regulation, EU, No. 267/2012, and 1.2.5 Sanctions on associated services for each of the categories above, see the references above. 1.3 Shipping, shipbuilding and transport sectors. 1.3.1 Sanctions related to shipping and shipbuilding, Articles 4 grams, 4H, 8A, 18A and 18B of Council Decision 2010/413/CFSP, Articles 10A, 10B, 10C, 37A and 37B, and Annex 6B of Council Regulation, EU, No. 267/2012. 1.3.2 Sanctions related to the transport sector, Articles 15, 16, 17 and 18 of Council Decision 2010/413/CFSP, Articles 36A and D37 of Council Regulation, EU, No. 267/2012, and 1.3.3 Sanctions on associated services for each of the categories above, see the references above. 1.4 Gold, other precious metals, banknotes, and coinage. 1.4.1 Sanctions on gold, precious metals, and diamonds, banknotes and coinage, Articles 4C and 4D of Council Decision 2010/413/CFSP, Articles 15 and 16, and Annex 7 of Council Regulation, EU, No. 267/2012, and 1.4.2 Sanctions on associated services for each of the categories above, see the references above. 1.5 Nuclear proliferation-related measures. 1.5.1 Sanctions related to proliferation-sensitive nuclear activities, goods and technology, investment and specialized training, Articles 1, 1A, B, D, E, 2, 3, and 4, 2, 3, 5, 14 and 21 of Council Decision 2010/413/CFSP, Articles 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 17, 1, and 2A, 18, 19 and 22, and Annexes 1, 2I and 3 of Council Regulation, EU, No. 267/2012, and 1.5.2 Sanctions on associated services for the category above, see the references above. 1.6 Metals. 1.6.1 Sanctions on metals, Articles 4E and 4F of Council Decision 2010/413/CFSP, Articles 15A, 15B and 15C, and Annex 7B of Council Regulation, EU, No. 267/2012, and 1.6.2 Sanctions on associated services for the category above, see the references above. 1.7 Software. 1.7.1 Sanctions on software, Articles 4I and 4J of Council Decision 2010/413/CFSP, Articles 10D, 10E and 10F, and Annex 7A of Council Regulation, EU, No. 267/2012, and 1.7.2 Sanctions on associated services for the category above, see the references above. 1.8 Arms. 1.8.1 Sanctions on arms, Articles 1, 1, C, 3, and 4, and 3 of Council Decision 2010/413/CFSP, Articles 5, 1, A, and C, 17, 1, and 2, A, and 19 of Council Regulation, EU, No. 267/2012, and 1.8.2 Sanctions on associated services for the category above, see the references above. 1.9 Listing of persons, entities, and bodies, asset freeze and visa ban. 1.9.1 Asset freeze and visa ban measures applicable to 1.9.1.1 Listed Iranian banks and financial institutions, including the Central Bank of Iran. 1.9.1.2 Listed persons, entities, and bodies related to the oil, gas and petrochemical sectors. 1.9.1.3 Listed persons, entities, and bodies related to shipping, shipbuilding and transport. 1.9.1.4 Other listed persons, entities, and bodies not related to proliferation-sensitive nuclear, arms and ballistic missile-related activities. 1.9.1.5 Listed persons, entities, and bodies related to proliferation-sensitive nuclear, arms and ballistic missile-related activities, and 1.9.1.6 entities and individuals listed by the UN Security Council, as set out in Attachment 1, Part I to this Annex for Categories 1.9.1.1, 1.9.1.4, Attachment 2, Part I to this Annex for Category 1.9.1.5, and Parts 2 of Attachments 1 and 2 to this Annex for Category 1.9.1.6, Articles 19 and 20, and Annexes 1 and 2 to Council Decision 2010/413/CFSP, Articles 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 28A, 28B, and 29, and Annexes 8 and 9 to Council Regulation, EU, No. 267/2012. 1.10 Other Provisions. 1.10.1 The commitment in Section 1 covers all remaining provisions of Council Decision 2010/413/CFSP and Council Regulation, EU, No. 267/2012 not specified above. 1.10.1.1 Definitions, Article 1 of Council Regulation, EU, No. 267/2012, and 1.10.1.2 General and Final Provisions, Articles 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 26A, 27, and 28 of Council Decision 2010/413/CFSP, Articles 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 43A, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, and 51, and Annex 10 of Council Regulation, EU, No. 267/2012. 2. The EU represents that the provisions listed in Section 1 above constitute the full and complete list of all EU nuclear-related sanctions or restrictive measures. These sanctions or restrictive measures will be lifted in accordance with Annex 5. 3. Effects of the lifting of EU economic and financial sanctions. 3.1 As a result of the lifting of sanctions specified in Section 1 above, the following activities, including associated services, will be allowed, beginning on implementation day, in accordance with this JPO and provided that such activities are otherwise consistent with EU and EU member states' laws and regulations in effect. 3.2 Financial, banking, and insurance measures, see Sections 1.1.1 to 1.1.8. 3.2.1 Transfers of funds between EU persons, entities, or bodies, including EU financial and credit institutions, and Iranian persons, entities, or bodies, including Iranian financial and credit institutions, without the requirement for authorization or notification. 3.2.2 Opening of new branches, subsidiaries, or representative offices of Iranian banks in the territories of EU member states, and the establishment of new joint ventures, or the taking of an ownership interest or the establishment of new correspondent banking relationships by Iranian banks with EU banks, and opening by EU persons, including EU financial and credit institutions, of representative offices, subsidiaries, joint ventures or bank accounts in Iran. 3.2.3 Provision of insurance or reinsurance to Iran or the government of Iran, an Iranian legal person, entity, or body, or a natural person or a legal person, entity, or body acting on their behalf or at their direction. 3.2.4 Supply of specialized financial messaging services to any Iranian natural or legal persons, entities, or bodies, including those listed in Attachment 1 to this Annex. 3.2.5 Entering into commitments by EU member states to provide financial support for trade with Iran, including the granting of export credits, guarantees, or insurance, and into commitments for grants, financial assistance, and concessional loans to the government of Iran, and 3.2.6 Sale or purchase of public or public guaranteed bonds to and from Iran, the government of Iran, the Central Bank of Iran, or Iranian banks and financial institutions or persons acting on their behalf. 3.3 Oil, gas, and petrochemical sectors, see Sections 1.2.1 to 1.2.5. 3.3.1 Import, purchase, swap, or transport of Iranian crude oil and petroleum products, natural gas or petrochemical products and related financing. 3.3.2 Sale, supply, transfer or export of equipment or technology, technical assistance, including training, used in the sectors of the oil, gas, and petrochemical industries in Iran covering exploration, production and refining of oil and natural gas, including liquefaction of natural gas, to any Iranian person, in or outside Iran, or for use in Iran, and 3.3.3 Granting of any financial loan or credit to, the acquisition or extension of a participation in, and the creation of any joint venture with, any Iranian person that is engaged in the oil, gas, and petrochemical sectors in Iran or outside Iran. 3.4 Shipping, shipbuilding and transport sectors, see sections 1.3.1 to 1.3.3. 3.4.1 Sale, supply, transfer or export of naval equipment and technology for shipbuilding, maintenance, or refit, to Iran or to any Iranian persons engaged in this sector, the design, construction, or the participation in the design or construction of cargo vessels and oil tankers for Iran or for Iranian persons, the provision of vessels designed or used for the transport or storage of oil and petrochemical products to Iranian persons, entities, or bodies, and the provision of flagging and classification services, including those pertaining to technical specification, registration, and identification numbers of any kind, to Iranian oil tankers and cargo vessels. 3.4.2 Access to the airports under the jurisdiction of EU member states of all cargo flights operated by Iranian carriers or originating from Iran. 3.4.3 Cessation of inspection, seizure, and disposal by EU member states of cargoes to and from Iran in their territories with regard to items which are no longer prohibited, and 3.4.4 Provision of bunkering or ship supply services, or any other servicing of vessels, to Iranian-owned or Iranian-contracted vessels not carrying prohibited items, and the provision of fuel, engineering, and maintenance services to Iranian cargo aircraft not carrying prohibited items. 3.5 Gold, other precious metals, banknotes, and coinage, see sections 1.4.1 to 1.4.2. 3.5.1 Sale, supply, purchase, export, transfer or transport of gold and precious metals as well as diamonds, and provision of related brokering, financing and security services, to, from or for the government of Iran, its public bodies, corporations, and agencies, or the Central Bank of Iran, and 3.5.2 Delivery of newly printed or minted or unissued Iranian-denominated banknotes and coinage to, or for the benefit of the Central Bank of Iran. 3.6 Metals, see sections 1.6.1 to 1.6.2. 3.6.1 Sale, supply, transfer or export of graphite and raw or semi-finished metals, such as aluminum and steel to any Iranian person, entity, or body or for use in Iran, in connection with activities consistent with this JCPO. 3.7 Software, see sections 1.7.1 to 1.7.2. 3.7.1 Sale, supply, transfer or export of software for integrating industrial processes, including updates, to any Iranian person, entity, or body, or for use in Iran, in connection with activities consistent with this JCPO. 3.8 Listing of persons, entities, and bodies, asset freeze and visa ban, see section 1.9.1. 3.8.1 As a result of delisting as specified in this annex, releasing of all funds and economic resources which belong to, and making available funds or economic resources to, the persons, entities and bodies, including Iranian banks and financial institutions, the Central Bank of Iran, listed in Attachment 1 to this annex, and 3.8.2 As a result of delisting as specified in this annex, entry into, or transit through the territories of EU member states of individuals listed in Attachment 1 to this annex.